Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, good whatever it is, wherever you are, whoever you are, and welcome once again to Nerd Week, not Nerd Week Live, Full Fat Spoiler Chat. These things are too close, man. If I put one in Wednesday, I'll be calling everything else. Full Fat Spoiler Chat, the show brought to you by us, the folks at Nerd Caliber, in which we discuss a piece of nerd entertainment that happened recently in depth, so we spoil the heck out of it. This week it is going to be, as you've seen probably from all of the stuff that we put up to promote it, the anime Mushoku Tensei, also Jobless Reincarnation, as it's called in English. We're going to spoil it. We're going to talk about whether it works, how it works, what doesn't, what's the messages, what are the themes, what's the tone of the whole series, and get into it deep. So if you do not want to have this spoiled for you, if you haven't seen it and you hate spoilers, I'd suggest you watch something else for the next 45 minutes, hour, however long we talk about it. But if
First
you don't
episode
like...
of Mushoku Tensei, maybe?
Oh, maybe watch Mushoku Tensei. Yeah, exactly. And then watch this afterwards when it's up on YouTube as... Yeah. I had something else I was going to say about, not watching, but I can't remember what it was. So what we'll do is I'll introduce myself, Rodney Brown, the editor-in-chief of Nerd Caliber. I am first person shooter on Facebook and Burley_adopter on the Twitters. Joining me tonight, let's see, we're going to start going counterclockwise. So the man with the chapeau, Manny, if you would.
Hello, my name is Manny. I'm the founder of Nerd Caliber, co-owner with my partner in crime, Rodney. I'm pointing the right way.
AABB.
But thank you for having me for this discussion.
Of course. Mr. Redshirt.
Oh no!
If you had seen what happened to his video feed just a couple of minutes ago, that would be, oddly appropriate. Anyway, Byron, if you would.
Hey guys, Byron McNeil, aka Byron D0, contributing writer, social media guy, content creator. I'm looking forward to talking about this series with you guys. If you're interested, I do some dope ass art on a bunch of different facets. Check out my Instagram. It's BD0art.
And zero spelled out as the word.
Yes.
Very cool. And in the chats already, Takira Rodriguez, welcome to the chat. Again, spoiler warning, Mushoku Tensei, if you haven't seen it, and you don't like spoilers, probably not the show for you to be on right now. But if you've got any questions and you have seen it or you don't mind spoilers and you've got any questions, feel free to throw them out there while we're talking about this stuff. So first up, so you always do, I'm going to introduce what this comes from. What's the provenance, as the art people say, of this anime. Mushoku Tensei is based on... It's an anime that was in this winter season, started in January, just finished. It was based on a light novel series that started as a web novel on an amateur web novel website in Japan back in 2012. The light novel and then the subsequent manga that started in 2014, I believe, are still going. This is a long series of content, or amount of content here, folks. The basics is it's the story of a person who apparently we never find out what the real name is from Earth, who is killed and is reincarnated in this fantasy world where magic and so on is a real thing. Well, there we go. So, good point. So it is called the grandfather of Isekai light novels.
Yes.
Because while it may not have actually started a lot of these tropes, and I did when I was doing some research earlier, I discovered that some of them actually appeared in other light novels just like a year or two before. Because it was the most popular light novel, fantasy light novel series in Japan for years and years and years, it popularized all of these things. Whether it started them or not, it was very early in on the game, probably started some of them, and certainly, everybody who then followed up writing isekai light novels and anime had been reading this. So Byron, you mentioned who what?
I mentioned I mentioned Truck-kun, which is like an ongoing meme within like the isekai community.
Right. So now here's one thing to get a little bit of a difference. Prior to this light novel and one before it, the one that actually really started the idea of people dying and being reincarnated, Knights and Magic, which started in 2010 as a light novel and was made into a pretty forgettable anime a couple of years ago. The idea of isekai, which is Japanese for another world, that's all it means. Not this world, another world. It was that somebody would be transported to this other world. Think Inuyasha. The character is the person they were on Earth. They just get sucked into this other world somehow.
Usually,
that was the first not instance of that I've seen referenced was Knights and Magic, and that was 2010. So and apparently Digimon falls into that category, and a bunch of other things. So Knights and Magic was the first one to have a character that died in a car accident and was reincarnated, literally reincarnated, born as an infant, and then 2 years later, this came out, Mushoku Tensei, and the same idea. But it really popularized that idea, and in this case, it was a truck that hit the main protagonist. So, trope 1, Truck-kun. Character dies from a truck. Let's see. Other tropes. Manny, you want to jump in on here? Any you can think of, or you want to just let us...
I mean, it does have the one character that's very abusive. Like Bakugo or other anime I've seen.
True, although that's not necessarily an isekai. That's just sort of an anime trope.
Yeah.
So another anime or another isekai trope is main character is overpowered in this new world.
Yes, sir.
Give me another one, Byron.
Slightly perverted characters or very perverted.
Again, anime, not necessarily isekai. Isekai, the main protagonist interacts with a god being that influences their existence in this new world.
Man God, right? It's called in
or
the series.
Human
Yes.
God.
Or Human God.
Well, it's Man God in the English, I assume dub, but also the subtitle. But in most of the references they translate it as Human God, and it is the Japanese word for human.
Okay, I watched the subbed. That's why.
Yeah. The Japanese word for human begins with N, and I can't remember what it is, but so and that's Konosuba, and so many other pick that up. Slime. Although the god is kind of a power that's in his head, so it doesn't. Danmachi for sure. Well, no, even that there were two gods that are in the world. I'm thinking of more like those awful things like in another world, my smartphone, or Konosuba, where either in between their death and their resurrection or reincarnation, because I don't think you can call it a reincarnation when they come up as a full adult human body, even if it's not their original one. They interact with this god that somehow helps them or hurts them, depending on the anime. So you've got all of those. You've got a ranked magic and combat system, and other elements that are similar to a JRPG game, like Adventurers Guilds, where you can pick up ranked guild missions that are essentially side quests. That was not necessarily first introduced here, but again, certainly became super popular, and then has been picked up by way too many isekai since then. So that's basically the story of this this anime. We follow the young Rudeus Grey Rat, as he's called. Let's find a picture that has him. That's him with his later on his magic instructor Roxy.
Best girl.
Best girl. the and the story is that he is when he was on Earth, he was a 34-year-old NEET or hikikomori, a shut-in, a jobless shut-in. And when he gets reincarnated, he makes it sort of a goal that he's got this new opportunity and wants to make more of his life than what it was when he was on Earth. But also, he's a 34-year-old shut-in that plays video games and watches hentai, and that's all he ever does as a real human being.
That's also been a trope in modern isekai.
Well, yeah, that's true. Good point. That the main character is basically at least an otaku.
Yes.
If not a NEET.
Like I can think of a few off the top of my head. Konosuba, ReZero.
Yep, ReZero. Basically a lot of them. There aren't very many where, not so bright jock gets transported into another world. That would be pretty funny, actually. But
yeah.
Actually, kind of the cautious. The hero is overly cautious.
Who's what was the one where the guy's like the guy is like he's like a wrestler?
Actually, a professional wrestler does wind up getting transferred into another world.
Yes,
that one was pretty silly. Good comedy. But anyway, so the other aspect of this is a 35-year-old, essentially, otaku pervert. So in the body of an infant with the mind of a 34-year-old. And so he is pretty perverted right from the get-go. And the show, well, we'll get into that. So the show follows his growth. The first season ultimately takes him to a point where a big catastrophe happens. He winds up on another side of the planet, essentially, or another side of the world, with in the demon world, with his student charge, whatever you want to call her, Eris.
Yes.
In thinking about how to describe Eris, it just occurred to me that as I was thinking the words, well, Eris is the child of a noble family, and Eris, oh crap, her name is literally Eris.
Yes.
And she's an heiress.
Anyway. Oh my
God. Spelled in this ERIS. But anyway.
I'm gonna cry.
Yeah, it just literally occurred to me a couple hours ago. Anyway, this season ends with them trying to get off this continent to get back to their world and find out what happened in that whatever that catastrophe was that brought them there. Over the course of this, Rudy gets up to the 10 years old, I believe. Maybe a little bit older by the time they cross the continent. It's hard to say. But when all this happens is pretty much right after his 10th birthday. So he's still a little kid. And by the way, the web novels go on until he's 74. So there's a lot of stuff they're packing in here, and a lot of room for this thing to go on.
For years and years.
For years and years. So what we're going to do now is what we do at this point is we talk about what worked, what didn't work, what we liked, what we didn't like about this. And I think, let's start with Manny. What about Mushoku Tensei was good, bad, otherwise?
Okay, I'll start with the good. I think the best thing, in my opinion, about this anime is that I like that they were at some points exploring the fact that even though he's in a new body, he's still retaining his old memories, so he's still retaining a lot of the trauma that he went through. And I think my favorite episode is the one where he's wants to take his final test, but he has to go outside his house, and he has to work through the issues he went through in his previous life, where he was just bullied horribly bullied. Um, um, so the fact that he was dealing with that was awesome. I liked I liked how his another thing I liked is his explanation of magic, like him internalizing how magic works and how he can use his previous understanding of magic from playing all those MMOs,
Yep.
uh, so that he can master it and use it properly, and he found shortcuts to it, and I thought that was really cool. I love internal exploration in characters. Um, the animation was good. It was very well done. Character design was great, and that's all the good I can really say about it.
Interesting. We're going to disagree a lot. Okay.
Oh,
Fire away with the bads.
yes, sir.
um, the main character is way too perverted for me, way too much. Like there was some certain points where I just wanted to stop watching altogether. Um, uh, I mean, it's just so much. Like talk about, even as a baby, talking about like, oh, my mother's breasts are great, and why am I not getting aroused by this? And I sort of want to like choke him. Like what? It just keeps on going. The holy relic
Yeah.
thing he keeps going about over and over. And I think like probably the worst scene of that is when Eris was like sleeping in the barn, and he goes over while she's sleeping and tries to take her panties off. And I'm like, why am I watching a 7-year-old who's actually, let's see, 7 plus 35, 42 years old mentally, taking off panties of a 10-year-old girl? Like what the hell am I watching? You know? Um, and outside of that, I found the rest of it. Like I found him being with his family and trying to understand the world, trying to understand himself, fascinating. Once he got out and started being a tutor to the rest of the Grey Rat clan, I just got bored. Everything else fell into like tropes, like you mentioned. Like at least everything seemed familiar to me. You got the one character that's always upset at him, and then you got the one silent and strong type, which is actually two characters. Grizel, I think I'm saying her name right, and
Ghislaine.
Ghislaine,
Yeah.
and the superb, I forgot his name,
Rudeus.
Ray, yeah. Um, but everything was just like the part within the demon continent. I was like, okay, I just wasn't excited. I feel like I've seen these type of adventures before. Um, I don't know. I just got really upset with the main character. He just kept, I don't know, just that. And also, there was this one scene where he was they're competing. There's like three adventure teams in the forest. This is, I believe, the last episode of the 11th episode.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. And there's this inexperienced adventurers, and then it's like, wait, let's hold on, let's wait to it the right time, and everyone's like, let's save them now, and like, no, let's wait. And then one of them dies, one of the unexperienced adventurers dies, and he's like, oh, I didn't. I'm like, you played MMOs long enough, you don't know when what happens to groups when they fight like overpowered creatures. Even outside of that, common sense, I don't know, it's just it's it his this character makes to me the show. I just don't care. I don't care if we're watching season 2. I don't care reading about the books. It's his perversion and the way the rest of it's written, the adventures outside that, it's just I just don't like the show at all.
Yeah. I can see that. Um, Anything further about what worked particularly well or didn't, that you want to expand on, or time to move on to Byron?
I mean, I don't want to be greedy at time. um, but I'm willing to jump into anything if you want me to.
Byron, same questions. Right. Good, bad, work, didn't.
Well, okay. So first thing that worked for me, the visuals. Like, it's a really pretty show, and it's Kyoani, right?
No, it is not.
It's not.
Nope. You might think so.
Yeah, with the amount of polish, I would think so.
Studio Bind, And I believe this is a brand new studio that was sort of
Oh wow.
pulled together to do this.
What a way to what a way to christen your company.
So it's a joint. This makes sense. It's a joint operation between White Fox and Egg Firm.
Okay, White Fox is the name definitely a name I recognize.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love all the visuals, the backgrounds, even like the little details with the things like the stone that Rudy found to color the Spurt's hair. Like
Yep.
it was just it made me as an artist jealous of like how much detail and quality was put into it. Uh I love the animation, like the fight animation especially. Like those training sequences were just so on point.
I was
Like
gonna get to that myself, so I just popped up an image of one of the training fights between Eris and Ghislaine.
as someone who's studied kendo for for several years, I'm a sword nut. I love seeing a good sword fight. And when I get it, when there's enough room where if I'm watching it, I'll like mimic the moves. And this was definitely one of those. This was definitely one of those shows that had me doing it. Um, the colors, the music was great. Like I
Yep.
really just I love like I love the orchestral soundtrack within the worlds, but at this point that's kind of a standard for most isekai, I think.
Most good ones.
Yes,
If
most good ones definitely.
if
You
I
have
may
to
add,
have.
if I might add to that a little bit, I did love that the beginning and the ending. Like usually, most animes I watch, I just skip over the title sequences or skip the ending sequences because they have nothing to do with the story, and I'm tired of hearing the same song over and over. But I love that it was the music and the story just begins. It doesn't. You see the titles and the story keeps going.
Yes.
You know, you're forced to watch it, but it's good. I like that transition.
Yep.
Oh yeah, it's very minimalist. That was one thing I definitely appreciate about those openings. Like I don't mind like a good standalone opening, but the fact that they don't like ReZero does that too. They don't necessarily put a lot of focus on like a detailed intro or ending for that matter. A lot of times, and sometimes you don't need it, especially the world is when the world is essentially a piece of art. Um, I like the backstory of Rudeus's past life because I resonate with a lot of like a lot of like the struggles of the hikikomori lifestyle. Being neurodivergent myself, there are just those times when I don't want to deal with the outside world at all because like it's just too painful. It's just too stressful, and it and yeah, when I'm deep in it, it can bring out the worst in me, like it did in Proto Rudeus. That's what I'm going to call him, Proto Rudy.
Yeah.
Um. So yeah, def I I definitely I definitely like the fact that like he doesn't just instantly lose those faults like right away. Like he has to work at it, which is going to lead me to some of the things that I didn't like.
Okay. But
But
before we get into your didn't likes, Mr. Krakowian, welcome back to the show. Hello from the outside. Hopefully you don't mean like outside if you're in one of those places where it's actually snowing right now,
oh dear.
which would suck. Anyway, sorry. Byron,
Okay.
go ahead.
Yeah, I'm with Manny on the perversion. Like, it got pretty cringy, like at a lot of different points, especially that birthday episode. Good lord, I was wincing through that, like
Yeah.
the after party scene
Yep.
with the grape juice.
Yes.
Yes,
Let's gently call it the lack of consent
yes.
scene. Um,
Okay.
yeah.
Yes, the lack of consent. It was because one, I don't care how old Rudy's body is. Internally, he's still a 34-year-old trying to have his
44 at that point.
Oh,
because he's 10 years old.
yeah.
It's after his 10th birthday, and he
Wow.
was 34 when he died. So yeah, 44-year-old man.
Well, that makes it even worse.
Hmm.
Like, there was that. There was a scene. There was a scene with Roxy's panties, which I kind of just face palmed every time it was brought up, especially when the redheaded maid brought like put them in that chest. It's like really, really, can we stop this gag? I mean, it was gratifying to see him to see Eris beat the snot out of him, but she still had some level of adoration for him after the fact.
So I will say one thing. I'll get into this when I talk about my likes and dislikes. The fact that every time, once he meets Eris, every time Rudy does anything to violate consent, he gets the absolute piss beat out of him by Eris.
Yes.
And so that's a kind of mitigating plus to a negative, but still, I get your point.
Also, there were some points where I just couldn't stand Eris. Like it's just like the fact that you're in the beginning of her arc, it's like she's how old and she can't read, and she's from a well-to-do family. It's like I understand that you're privileged and all, but and that you like fighting, but it's like shouldn't you have been had a little more education, or were you just that spoiled?
Yeah, it's pretty clear that she's just that spoiled. I mean, Eris is, like I was saying earlier, she's a tsundere that is all sun and no dere. She just a very difficult character to like.
Yes, very, very. Uh, I will say there was actually another like I wanted to add.
Mm-hmm.
I like you just said her name. Is it Gilsane?
Ghislaine.
Ghislaine.
Think of Jeffrey Epstein's girlfriend, Ghislaine Maxwell. Unfortunately, it's exactly the same name, spelled exactly the same way.
Okay, yeah, Ghislaine. Just her aesthetic, I'm I love the female form, and especially buff ladies, and mwah.
So that image that popped up there, in case this for anybody who is watching this who hasn't seen it and doesn't mind the spoilers, that's Ghislaine, the wolf girl. That's obviously an adult next to the two children, Eris with the red hair and Rudy with the brown hair. Yeah, that's a great character design,
Yes.
and great character, great, well written.
Well, yeah, great character design, and yeah, there were some great character designs all around in this series.
Yeah. All right. Oh, go ahead.
Those are the big ones that come to mind off the top of my head.
All right, time for me to start inviting arguments because people are going to argue with me on this, I guarantee.
Here we go.
Oren, welcome to the show. Once again, we're talking about Mushoku Tensei. If you've seen it, great. Hang around. We're going to spoil the hell out of it, and throw in your questions. If you haven't seen it and you don't want it to be spoiled, then I would suggest you find something else to watch. But otherwise,
you're in the wrong place.
Otherwise, welcome to the show. All right, so likes, things that have already been mentioned. The animation is freaking gorgeous. It's almost hard to describe just how good the animation is in this. I'm bringing back up that image of Eris and Ghislaine practicing with their wooden swords. So the compositing of this, the background is just out of focus. If as a photographer, this is probably 80 millimeter lens at f5.6. I mean, it's literally that accurate to that kind of videography. That the fact that they went out of their way to think to do something like that, and the fading of the background, they obviously drew it probably pretty solid and then used computers to fade it. And there is some computer animation stuff, the magic sequences, are computer animated, but like Kimetsu no Yaiba, Demon
Slayer.
Demon Slayer.
Yep.
Kimetsu no Yaiba. Like that, the CG is integrated into the 2D animation so well that you almost can't tell. It's really superb.
Yeah, the man god scenes were like you could tell they were CGI'd.
Exactly, and in fact, they may have even rotoscoped the man god just because of some of his wacky movements. But in this scene, they go out of their way for a scene that literally has no story value whatsoever, other than to show once again that Eris doesn't like to be in lessons and she loves to learn how to be a sword fighter. It is Sakuga like Jujutsu Kaisen does in their important battle scenes. This isn't an important scene. That was like, okay, there's another scene of them fighting, practicing, and it's gorgeously animated. The magic in here is fantastic. The character designs, as you said, are absolutely fantastic. It is beautiful. It's beautiful to listen to. The voice acting is outstanding. One of the funniest comedy timing bits is when Rudeus, when he's first born, when Rudeus sees his mother Zenith's breasts. They're partially covered, so obviously it's you don't get to. Oren Latham, I love your vids. Thank you very much. You don't obviously get to see anything other than that there's in his mind these really big breasts sitting up in front of him, and he reaches up and he's got little baby hands, and he narrates the voice. Or he narrates as a 34-year-old thoughts in his head. And so the 34-year-old in his head goes, "What?" And instantly they cut to a view down looking at Rudeus the baby going, "Oh." Just like the cutest little baby sound. And it's the timing of the edit, the timing of the comedy was just nailed it. All of the voice actors in this, as far as I can tell, are fantastic. I have to look in.
I highly recommend the dub too. Actually, they've got some solid. It's got some solid voice talent there.
That is also probably true. I watch subs all the time, so I don't know. The voice actor for the adult proto, as you call him, Rudeus, is like a classic actor, Japanese voice actor. And I can't remember exactly what it was that he was in, but it's one of those you kind of, it's like, really? That guy? So the voice acting is fantastic. I love the world building. I'm a fantasy nut. I love the very wonderfully complex world building. I love the fact that it takes some elements that would be typical in a JRPG, but messes with them. Like nobody has a level 1, level 2, or whatever. Going to they are ranked by sort of beginner, intermediate, advanced, and then Saint, King, Emperor, and God. Ghislaine is called the Sword King Ghislaine. She is one of the most powerful swordswomen in their continent.
Isn't Rudy's father Paul also a sword king? Or is he
is not. As a turn, I looked this up. He is not even a sword saint. He is sword. Well, it depends on the style. In the sword god style, where she is a sword king, or the sword king Ghislaine, he is an advanced. So he's not even up to a sword saint level. Wow. I haven't looked up. He apparently is better at the I think the water god style. Is the one that he fights Rudy with mostly. Although he tries to teach Rudy all three.
Because he's kind of like he's trying to keep a low profile, isn't he?
Well, not really. I mean, so that's another thing. His Rudy happens to be born into a family of 2 former adventurers. So his mother is a natural magic user healer, and his father is a sword master. To the extent that he is sent to the village that they're born in to be sort of their protector. But all of the world building like this, like when you find out that, when Rudy wants to start learning some more difficult magic, well, there are books that are in a language or a couple of languages he doesn't understand. So he has to try to find. Oren says, I miss my dog. I'm sorry that you lost your dog, if that's what you're saying, or the dog is no longer with you in some fashion. Our condolences. Demon Slayer is so good. Yes, Demon Slayer is amazing. I like the way they deal with the character of Rudy. I don't like Rudy. And I certainly don't like Proto-Rudeus. I like the fact that they use this to tell what really, in my mind, would be a realistic, and aside from some of the things in ReZero, no isekai has ever been realistic. The realistic effects of what would happen if someone like this winds up in the situation that Rudeus finds himself in. And Manny, you brought up this point about
trauma growth, dealing with past trauma.
Right, dealing with his past trauma. I love the fact that when we find out, so the first thing we see of Rudy, or Proto-Rudeus, is he's in his room, obviously as an adult. He's got scraggly, scruffed beard, fat slob, room is a mess. While his parents, or while people are at his parents' funeral, he's in his room watching porn and masturbating. And probably the porn is really super sketchy. The one little scene of it you actually see on his screen, and I don't know whether it's hentai or actual porn. Sorry, Oren, I clicked on the wrong button. It's holding your comments about, about your dog. YouTube is probably because of the fact that, it's sad stuff. And I clicked the wrong button. I hit hide instead of, so again, my apologies. So the video, and we don't know, because it's a cartoon, we don't know if he's watching a cartoon or if he's watching something that's actual, real life. But it seems to be a girl sitting on a toilet. That's the sort of real quick glance you get of what he's watching.
Porn.
He's a pervert. He's so completely shut off from the world that he can't even be bothered to attend his parents' funeral. He is a horrible, disgusting person. There's no way around any other interpretation of what this guy is. And so when he gets thrown out of his house by his other male relatives, they literally come at him with baseball bats and huck him out of the house, and winds up dying trying to save some people who look like they're about to be hit by a truck. You understand why this happened to him. Then you find out why he became at least a NEET, or hikikomori, because he's always been a fat, kind of ugly kid, and he was bullied horribly. He wound up as an agoraphobe. He couldn't leave his house. But both of those things are presented, and the way they're presented, at least in the anime and probably in the novels, with almost no judgment call on either side. This guy is really despicable and somebody you should absolutely hate. And this is how part of how he became who he is. And you're not presented, there's no strings in the background of Rudy remembering the bullying. It's just he remembers it. And I really, really like that it's presenting you with, this guy was horrible. There's a reason why some of his actions were horrible. What you do with those bits of information going forward in the show is up to you. Or like Mineta from My Hero Academia, Mineta is straight up just a pervert.
Yeah.
There's no excuse given for Mineta whatsoever.
At all.
But then it takes that and says, okay, so what happens if you put somebody this horrible into a body of someone who is young enough that he can get away with shit? Because people, it's like, oh my God, why is the baby acting this perverted? It's can't really be the baby. You know, it's just weird. You know, and he lets himself get away with it even while he's trying to better other aspects of his life. And does. Ultimately, he fights through that, like you said, that vision with his final test with Roxy, his final magic test before she admits that he's now better than she, or more powerful anyway than she is. He can't leave the courtyard of his house. And he basically is hauled out, or tricked out, essentially. And so I really love the idea that even though he's at one aspect of his life trying really hard to be a better person, he doesn't know how to be the better person in this other aspect of his life, because it's never been an aspect of his life that was anything other than self-gratifying perversion. And that's going to take a lot longer to get, well, beaten out of his system, literally, than trying to be better than what he was as somebody to accomplish something, magic, learning, and so on. And I think that's really smart. I think it's very tough to take. You know, I 100% grant you that every scene, you know, the scene where he, you know, thinks about trying to take off Eris's panties, you know, and then gets the shit kicked out of him. The scene where, even though initially Eris offers herself to him, she then makes it very clear that that was a bad choice on her part, and he doesn't immediately stop, and she kicks him hard enough that it will be a surprise if he ever has children.
Spoilers.
So I really like the way that they're taking this really disturbingly realistic look at what would happen to this kind of a person and extending it out through actual realistical, logical conclusions. Now, granted, they're giving him some benefit, they're giving him a little bit of plot armor in that he would probably be dead by now.
You think?
I'm kind of surprised Ghislaine just didn't kill him at some point for some of the stuff he's done to Eris, whether she knows that it's been done or not. But we also know, and here's one of the things that's really sort of one very good about the writing, if not very enjoyable about the story, is that Rudy comes from a family of absolute disgusting perverts. You know, his dad impregnates the maid, probably by force. In the book, it's by force. They kind of fudge it a little bit in the anime where Lilia, the maid, at one point thinks that Rudy is being a little too hard on Paul, his dad, because she feels like she sort of, you know, teased him into it.
Yeah, there was a part where she talks about how she got turned on by hearing all the sex in the other room. So she purposely left the door open while she was bathing to seduce. Right,
to seduce him. I don't believe that's in the novel. I think in the novel he basically just opened up her door and went, now. But even with that, you know, that still means Paul, his dad, is just an absolute scumbag. At one point, Ghislaine, Paul, and Zenith were all in an adventurers group with a couple of other people. And she's telling Rudy the story of how Paul at one point essentially tried to force himself on her. She's powerful enough, more powerful than Paul, that she basically stopped him hard. But she tells it because she is kind of a kudere. You know, she's almost emotionless. She's just telling it as something that happened. Like, oh, this is them. But it reinforces in Rudy's mind that, yeah, my dad's a scumbag. Even though he is incredibly charming. He's a super charming character.
Oh, yeah.
Even after you find out what a scumbag he is, he's still kind of pretty charming at times. so I understand how cringeworthy all of the ecchi is, how very difficult to watch all of the not just ecchi, the actual consent violation aspects of the show are. But I'm really amazed at how well they've taken the idea of this person who was really not a good person when he was alive on Earth, and how difficult it is, despite his willingness, to become a better person in his new life.
Yeah, it's definitely a slow burn. His character progression, which
Yeah.
I think that's part of the reason why I want to stick with this series.
Well, I agree. I agree 100%. I think that's why I want to stay with this series. Well, one, it's beautiful. I love the world. The music is absolutely fantastic. I really enjoy the writing. And I want to find out if Rudy can, in fact, become a much better person. Can he be, can he have a turnaround like Natsuki Subaru? Natsuki Subaru in RE0 was essentially an incel. Although the books came out before that term was around. But, I'm nice to you, so you owe me stuff, Amelia. Literally, that's, his big meltdown scene. And he gets rightly kicked to the curb for thinking things like that.
Yes, sir.
And eventually turns around and realizes, in this case, it's mainly because of Rem, who
didn't deserve her.
He didn't deserve her. We're kind of spoiling the first season of RE0, so let's not do that either.
I'm sorry. I'm really defensive of her.
Yes, well, and you should be. Rem is best girl. So having said that, I like that the cringeworthy parts of this exist for what they mean for the writing and the story. I don't like watching them. I don't like seeing them. But I don't want them not to be there, because I think if they weren't there, this wouldn't be the amazing story that it is.
I want to say that I agree with you that 100% that I love about character growth. That he is learning in a way to be a better person, almost like he's kind of deconstructing himself. However, I probably won't follow this series, and this is why I say that. I I don't think the fact that his perversion is ever going to really be addressed or fixed, only because the way it's being directed, the series. Like, it seems like there was this one shot where he's kind of going like this, and his tutor Roxy was trying to teach him, and he's talking about like, oh, she's pretty, and I want to get a quick panty look of her. And where does the camera go? It goes straight for a shot of her panties, and I'm like, like what? So it's like I don't think so. If I'm trying to find the beats of the story in the sense of like, all right, where is this going to go? What are they going to address? Are they going to address this issue? And I feel like I don't think they will, because I don't think the director or the writers are going to address it. I feel like this is going to be a continuous thing, which, yeah, he'll work on fixing other things, like he'll be a great mage. He'll become better friends for Eris, and maybe some other things like that. But I maybe try to get
a better hero, maybe.
Yeah, maybe fix some of the racial issues with the superb,
yep,
if I'm saying that right, and yes, trying to make show them in a better light. Okay, but I don't see if that happens. Let me know. I'll go back and watch it. But I don't think it's going to be addressed. I don't think it's going to be something they'll fix.
Yeah, I can see that, because so there are two ways to look at this. Either it's a story that realistically looks at perversion and how to grow out of the particularly difficult parts of that, like consent violation, or it's a story that uses that storyline to just indulge in fan service. And I can see why, showing Rudy putting on, you know, Roxy's panties as a little toddler, you know, and it's funny. Showing Rudy trying to get a view of, you know, Roxy's panties, and the camera gives us his point of view. Yeah,
the doll scenes.
Hmm?
The doll scenes.
Oh yeah. He uses his Earth magic to create, you know, essentially figurines from Earth, but of people like Roxy, and you know, then looks up their skirts and, you know, and so on. Yeah, I can see that. And maybe I'm a little too impressed by how they're handling the consent violation issues. Like every time a consent violation comes up, you know, he gets his ass kicked.
Not just him either. Roxy's new student towards the end of the series.
Yeah, she's teaching some prince in whatever kingdom she's in, and actually sort of in the middle of the series because they communicate, you know, via letters back and forth. But whenever she's reading one of his letters, this student of hers comes in and basically tries to feel her up, and she just she sets him on fire every time.
Which is an appropriate response.
Exactly. So maybe I'm more impressed with that than I should be, and not paying attention to how much the show does, in fact, indulge in the fan service. And that may be a Japanese thing which doesn't translate well to the audience. You know, thinking about things, you know, even looking at things in Japan and acting on something are worlds different. You know, one is understandable perversion, the other is an illegal act. And in Japan, in the United States, those two things are on a spectrum, and if you do the one, everybody in the West, particularly the United States, believes you're going to do the second. In Japan, that's not the case. In Japan, they 100% believe you can do the one. You can be as perverted as you want to be about really transgressive stuff, frankly. And if you don't do the second, if you don't act on it, doesn't matter. Actions are all that matter.
Yeah, which is why their laws regarding that kind of stuff are kind of murky.
Well, yeah. I mean, in the Japanese rules are, if it's fictional, it doesn't matter. You know, portraying stuff that is illegal for people to do, if you portray it in fiction, it's not illegal, and in fact, it's commercial. I mean,
look at Nobuhiro Watsuki. Like, he got arrested, but he only got a slap on the wrist.
Well, yeah, that's a different thing. You know, he got arrested and he should have been punished in a much more, you know, harsh way. That was the one, possession of child pornography. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Anyway, I think I want to hope that they do take this growth of that aspect of his character as far along as it looks like they're taking his growth of being able to get out of his shell and become a better person, do better things for people, like when he rescues Sylphie. You know, he thinks at that point Sylphie is a boy, is just some kid who's being, you know, bullied because of, you know, pointy ears.
I'm pretty sure he was the only one that thought that, though.
Well, that's true. He was the only one who thought Sylphie was a boy. So it wasn't a perversion thing or a noble white knight, I've got to save this girl sort of thing. It was just, hey, this is wrong. And, you know, he's grown enough to have the bravery to be able to try to do something about that at that point in the story.
Even more impressive, I would say, was the way he stood up to his dad in that episode.
Yes. Yeah.
Because, like, Paul was just like, I don't want to hear it. He's like, okay, I'm not going to say anything because nothing I say is going to change your mind. And if I had $1 for every time I've been in that kind of scenario in my life.
Yep.
I did like that scene too. Yeah. That was good.
Now, and there's the whole thing. You know, I love that scene. I loved all of the scenes that showed Rudy's growth, that showed him standing up to what otherwise would have been either something that he just accepted, like, you know, Paul's perversion. Perversion isn't the right word. Infidelity and you know, impregnating. Um, uh, but do I like those things, so much that I'm just willing to give the cringy stuff a pass? I don't know, and I'll have to see. I will watch the next season whenever it happens because I do want to see whether or not that is true. Whether this ultimately becomes an excuse to just have incredibly well written stories as an excuse for fan service, and very cringy fan service. Um,
Did anyone else find it weird that the maid,
Lilia.
that her child, which is Paul's child, also is wearing a maid's uniform as well, helping out in the house? I don't know. That was a little weird,
That's a little
but
slavery,
yeah.
not maid, but
Yeah.
yeah. Um, but then again, yeah, you're right. It's Paul's child, so it should be as much a member of the family, and it is at that point when you finally see these. Before Rudy gets sent off to train Eris, Norn and I can't think of the other child's name, um, are both clearly loved by all three of them. But yeah, Lilia's daughter winds up in a maid outfit, and that's a little, why isn't the other one in a maid outfit too? Put both the kids to work. Maybe the other one is, works outside. Who knows? Yeah, that was a little bizarre. I'll grant you that one.
Oh, they were so cute.
But here's the one. When you're talking about sort of cringeworthy and bizarre elements, the fact that Eris's dad, upon Rudy's 10th birthday, offers up his 12-year-old daughter to Rudy. As a sexual conquest, not like, you've got to get married. No, just, take her to bed. And sure, I understand, it's, a fantasy world that's kind of a medieval time or whatever, finger quotes you want to put around any of that stuff. George R.R. Martin didn't do stuff that creepy. So that to me was one of the creepiest things about the whole show.
It was pretty gross.
Yeah. I mean, I appreciated Rudy's horrible behavior towards Eris because, particularly after the first one, it was clear that it was a teaching moment. That it was, Rudy's going to be taught that consent violations are not the right thing, violently and painfully. But then just out of the blue, his whatever something uncle or cousin, I guess he's technically like whatever, offers his whatever something cousin to him. Like, I don't know. Anyway.
And don't get me started on the granddad.
Oh
God. Well, so he's responsible for Eris's horrible behavior because he is mostly just, a doting, spoiling grandfather. Except nobody will stand up to him to tell him to stop any of it. Yeah. So there are wonderfully awful characters in this.
Yeah,
and
that's like some Donald and Ivania levels of creepiness there.
Oh.
I'm sorry.
I get how much he loves Eris.
Yes.
Yeah, although I've never got the impression that it was really anything more than super doting grandpa. But in this world, you never know. All right, we're running actually really long here, so let's quickly do themes, messages, and tone. Manny, did this bring to you any clear message?
I just thought this series is about dealing with trauma, dealing with your old self, and trying to be a better person. I think that's the main theme that I think try and go with. The rest of the stuff, like what's his name, Laplace, the big demon lord, whatever,
Yeah.
demon god.
Yeah.
All that stuff to me is secondary. Like, yeah, that's their adventuring and so forth. But I felt that that's really the core of his group, and I hope that they keep going back to it. Sometimes I think they focus away from that and go to adventuring and doing other things, which is fine. I don't know, it's fine. I just find that the more internal stuff more intriguing, and I think that's to me is the theme.
Yeah, I think they did that, and the problem is I don't think that they hammered it home as much as they did the him sort of dealing with his agoraphobia and so on early on. Is his realization that this is a world where death really happens, and therefore hating the idea of one killing people or like you said in the situation of him waiting too long to save the adventurer, letting people die, to the point where he almost dismisses Ruijerd's help getting off the continent because Ruijerd is, I mean, he is an unflinching warrior for justice. I mean, there's black, there's white.
He basically Hajime Saito from Rurouni Kenshin.
If you're on the wrong side of that divide, you're losing your head. It's just that simple to him.
Swift after evil.
Yeah. I think they did that. They did in the second half of this, and once they moved out into the adventuring part, they did explore his reaction to what he used to be, but this time in dealing with actual death and trauma presented to him directly and danger. They just didn't dig as deeply into it as I think they did in the previous stuff. But I agree. Well, I'll get into that, a message and theme and so on. Byron, thoughts on message, theme?
Okay. Yeah, I definitely see like the dealing with trauma theme. I also see like a redemption arc overall with like it. You see that especially when he's training under Roxy, where he says outright, it's like, I can be better this time.
Yep.
So he has a long way to go, but he at least is striving to be better than he was in his past life. And I applaud that in anyone, fictional or in real life. Another theme that I'm seeing not just in the Demon Continent, but just in general, like undertones of prejudice. Like the way that some of these demi-humans are being treated.
Yep.
As like playthings for the nobles.
Yeah. Eris's dad, the doting grandfather's son, is just absolutely obsessed with beast girls. So all the maids in the household are beast girls.
I remember getting a little wigged out by that as well.
Yeah.
It wasn't fun. I'd say another theme that I'm starting to pick up is just organic growth, because it's like a lot of these shows you kind of just see like near instantaneous progression.
Yep.
And it can make it hard to relate to those characters. Sword Art Online. I'm sorry. Like, I got a bad cold. You gotta excuse me. But yeah, you gotta just. I really appreciate when stories like this take their time.
Yeah. So, gonna get a lot of hate on this one too. If you remember in Sword Art Online, Kirito is a computer engineering student, is a hacker, and was one of the people that was given the alpha and beta version of the game.
Yeah.
So he actually did work really hard to be as good as he is.
But it wasn't organic.
Well, it was. We just didn't see it. It had happened when the big, all the stuff happens. He had already put in all of this effort as an alpha tester and a beta tester on this game. Anyway, yeah. The end, where he essentially becomes, the human embodiment of impossible hacking. Yeah.
Cyber Jesus.
Yeah, you're right. That's stupid. Anyway. So I'll agree with both of those, particularly the main point, the two main points about it being about, dealing with trauma and growth and organic growth. Because I didn't realize this. Apparently, it's not just Mushoku Tensei. The whole title is, I'm going to butcher the Japanese here before I get to the English. Mushoku Tensei Isekai Itara Honki Das. Jobless Reincarnation, I will seriously try if I go to another world.
That was actually your pretty good pronunciation.
No, thank you. So that is literally in the title, the theme of trying harder, growing organically. And I do love the fact that even though they speed through 10 years of Rudy's life in the course of 11 episodes, they make it really clear that to be as good a mage as he is, he's got a little bit of an advantage because his mom is a pretty good healer, so he's got the magic ability there. And he's got the brain of a 34-year-old, in the body of a toddler with all that super spongy brain material. Or in Sword Art Online, that is what you heard. And why Jesus, it would take way too long to explain Kirito's sacrifice and resurrection at the end of that first arc. But anyway, organic growth. Yeah, it shows us how hard he tried. Even though he's got a little bit of advantage because of his brain, and the fact that his mom is clearly a talented magic user. He thinks he's super special, that he's the only one that can cast without speaking incantations, and then teaches Sylphie how to do it. And it's like, oh, okay. Guess nobody ever thought about it in this world, but people can be taught it. So, yeah.
I would have just taken it like, wow, I'm a good teacher.
Well, I think he actually does have a little bit of that too, but I think it's more where he's realizing he's not special, or not as special as he thought.
Fair, which is fair.
Yeah. Anyway, so I think those are the themes that are through here. I don't think there's any other overriding theme other than bigotry and prejudice, and learning how to, or at least having one character trying to learn how to deal with that.
Yes.
Rudy, at one level embracing the misogyny that's all through this world, but at another level really hating it, like particularly when his dad is one of the worst examples of it. And two, the bigotry against the demons, against the beast people. I do think that's a pretty important story, and I hope they continue. Oren, that baby smart. Yes, that baby was smart.
Yes, he was.
Anyway, that's pretty much our show, folks. That wraps up our themes, our tones. I think we've got this really clear, but let's go around one more time. Manny, recommend or no?
No.
Okay, that's a pretty hard no for Manny. Byron?
I'd recommend it.
And for me, I'd recommend it very strongly, with the caveat that your trigger warnings for consent violation.
Oh, absolutely.
For very hard ecchi. Yeah.
Yeah, if you hate ecchi, this is not for you.
If you hate ecchi, this is not for you. And if you have problems with consent violations, this is not for you. Don't trigger anything. Have a panic attack or anything, because I recommended that you watch the show. Go into it, with your eyes open. If you can handle that, I think it's brilliant writing. I really do. But anyway, that's it, folks. That is our show for tonight. Tomorrow night, our next show will be Nerd Week Live. That is next Tuesday. Already lots of interesting topics. Hopefully it won't be quite as busy as last Tuesday. And then next week, Godzilla v. Kong.
Oh.
Birth of Just... No.
Stop it.
Stop it. Godzilla
Never
versus
bring
Kong.
it up again.
Never bring it up again. Godzilla versus Kong. We'll be talking about it, spoiling the heck out of it. It dropped yesterday.
Yesterday, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So you get plenty of chances to see it before then. And we'd love to have you join us and chat about the monkey versus the lizard. Manny, if you would give us a goodbye.
Peace out.
Peace out. There you go. Roadrunner, welcome to the show, even though it's closing out right now. Yes, spoilers. We did spoilers for Mushoku Tensei. And next week, we're going to be doing spoilers for Godzilla vs. Kong. Byron, if you would give us a goodbye.
Hey, guys. Thanks for watching. Again, if you want to check out my art, It's BDZEROART on Instagram.
Cool, cool. Please do, folks. Good stuff. And for me, Rodney Brown, good night. Thanks for tuning in. Once again, as we always do, please continue to be aware that there's a pandemic out there. We're hitting a fourth wave, folks. There are cities here in Massachusetts that literally just went back up into the red zone where their infection rates are higher than they have been in months. Minnesota is effed based on everything I've been reading right now, and Texas is allowing the Nationals to have a full stadium for their first game. Wash your hands. Wear your mask.
6 feet apart.
6 feet apart. Keep that social distance, folks. I'm a couple of weeks away from my second shot. I'm still wearing a mask at the first probably year's worth of cons I'm going to. So be safe, folks, please. And with that, good night. Thanks again. And